Good evening, good morning, good night, you lovelies. It is the one, the only Cappy D Bar, and we are here to talk about one of the greatest pieces of fiction of all time. One Piece! Alright, chapter 100, 1169. Now, this is a new sound. I'm using a new mic. Alright, a couple of technical difficulties in between this. Ideally, this video was supposed to go up a day or two ago, but we had some prior obligations, okay? This was a very good chapter. I also really liked the cover art for this chapter. It was kind of like a mosaic, kind of a church glass kind of a situation with all of the mangas, even Gege's new kind of JJK iteration manga, Blue Lock. I even think like My Hero was in there somehow. It was good. It was a really good showing, and I thoroughly enjoyed the second piece of cover art for this chapter, which was the Old Rocks Pirates. All right, we see Whitebeard with his full beard or mustache. That whole thing's kind of weird, isn't it? It's a beard, right? We see Rocks with a white head of hair opposed to his black head of hair. We see Lin Lin, we see Wang Shi, we see Stussy, Captain John with the white head of hair. So I think we could just assume that this was the Rocks Pirates if the timeline was just a little bit easier on them, and maybe God Valley never even happened, right? I had an idea that maybe God Valley was the first Buster Call, and then I thought about it. Maybe the first Buster Call ever was done on Davy D. Jones' Buster, right? Or maybe it wouldn't be Davy D. Jones. Maybe it would be like Davy D. Buster. And the reason that they had to enact this fire call, and the reason that they had to enact a Buster Call in the first place, was because this pirate was just so powerful, right? I don't know, maybe if that was the first Buster Call, or maybe God Valley was the first Buster Call. I'm not too sure, but that's just my quick little idea on that. I really also liked the beginning to this chapter. Shanks is chilling with Gabon, and it's a really heartfelt moment where, Shanks is acknowledging, Ace's existence, saying that Captain Roger has a son, and it's so disheartening, man. Shanks says, man, so I have a little brother out there, and it's just like, oh my god. And then Gabon says, you and Buggy were always like kids to us, and it's like, oh man, this hurts. Knowing where Buggy and Shanks leave off in their relationship, knowing what happens to Ace, knowing the relationship and the part that Shanks plays in Ace's death. Not like he gave him up, but Shanks confronting Kaido was ample time that could have been used to save Ace, his quote unquote little brother. And oh man, it's so hard. It's so disheartening. It is so fucking disheartening, man. And then when you think about the connection of Shanks to Luffy, with Luffy to Ace, it's like, and Shanks to Ace, oh, I'm gonna cry. I'm gonna fucking cry, man. Really good shit from Oda on this, man. I really liked everything coming from this. I really liked everything coming from this small little excerpt. It was just perfect. It was perfect for everything that we've been building towards with the lore of Shanks, the understanding of what the One Piece world can deliver. All right. Next, he says that next we go to Quest Castle. All right, where Harold is losing control of his body, and he clips a couple of the guards essentially. Right. He reflects and says that if this transformation and this complete taking over of his body is complete, then the last 144 years of his life will be for nothing. Right. It's really interesting. I believe it was chapter 1166, 1167, where Oda said that the idea of 8D audio, it was kind of thing that he had fully immersed himself into, and he's really trying to understand the ins and outs of it. And if you really think about it, this Emu voice of all things kind of power, it does mirror a kind of 8D audio kind of experience. Your entire sensories are overloaded. It almost seems like it takes over your entire being, like you are completely surrounded by this aura, by this energy, right? Even in Harold's kind of, even in Harold's kind of quote unquote drunken stuporness, right? We see that he is very strong. He doesn't have control over his body, and he can't really react how he wants to, kind of like a drunken stupor, but it is insane levels of fucking strength. We see Harold, we see Ja Rule. Where is Ja? And Loki, they arrive at the Quest Castle, all right, per the request of Harold to try to chain him down. And, they walk in to Harold essentially being stabbed, right, where we picked up on from the original flashback, starting many, many chapters ago, no less than 10 at this point. And we see that Harold indeed is immortal, right? Like the exact same abilities that we've seen with Saturn, that we've seen with Somers. It is, it is playing out in real time with Harold, and he's surprised, he's shocked, and, he's understanding that he needs something way stronger than just a sword or, a regular fodder giant to take care of the issue at hand. And it is something that Harold, for lack of a better word, is just not prepared for, right? He says that with this power, the only way that he can be taken down is with the devil fruit, right? We're going to be getting to that later, but the idea is that Ja Rule and Loki must work together to conquer this force, right? That is a Domi reversed half ancient giant, right? Really, really crazy shit. Shanks says that, we're cutting back to the pool with Shanks and Gabon, and he's explaining his ties to Mu, right? The idea is that he has a shallow sea contract, meaning that he just has access to, do as he wishes, kind of like any hand of God of the God of Nights, right? But with this shallow covenant, there's also other covenants, and he fears that Harold will take further covenants, leading to immortality, immense strength, and complete and utter bodily surrenderance. Like in complete and utter autonomy surrendering. Like in the complete and utter surrendering of your autonomy to Mu, right? Shanks even knowing about Mu also just makes me think, like, what about Mu? Not in like a pussy kind of way, but like Shanks isn't in the Holy Land. Shanks isn't in the Holy Land to continue to get information. It's almost like he found out about Mu. He understood that this was probably the pinnacle of the peak, and that he can't reach it. Even if, he gave up 30 arms, even if, he made 100 deep shallow or, deep sea covenants, he could never par or box on the level of Mu, right? Which is just like, it's interesting because I really do think the Shanks that we know would still be undercover if he could take Mu. If that makes any sense, like if Shanks knew that there's a way to get to Mu and like really clip him forever, like he would still be playing both sides of Marijois. So that's just kind of my little diatribe on that. I really do believe that Harold was trying to do the best for his people, but the situations that led us to here, right, it just led to war. This is war. This is Harold killing his own giants. I mean, we learn later that I think even more giants die as a result of this, just because of the powers that was fucking displayed in this castle. Crazy shit happening all around. And as Shanks is kind of explaining all of this to Gabon in their pool, we see Colin, we see Ripley. We hear, or we see, maybe both, a large burst of Conqueror's Haki. Now, this relates to the Conqueror's Haki that Gabon said that he felt, and I believe it was chapter 154. All right, where Gabon is patched up, he's in the primordial realm, and he tells Luffy that this Haki is familiar. You must unchain Loki immediately, right? Just little things like that, just building towards the severity of this threat, right? Harold saying that Loki must intake this ancient devil fruit, which we learn is guarded by Ragnir, right? Which is fucking insane. As Ja Rule, he gets up to try to stop Harold from stopping Loki. We see that this is where, Harold, a kind of possessed Harold from Emu, he stabs Harold right in the fucking head. It's great. Like, he stabs Ja Rule like directly in the head. It's a whole thing like, oh, my helmet blocked it. But this clearly played some effect on his memory, because Harold tells everybody to tell the people of Elbaf, tell them how I, covered my hands in blood trying to get the world government to incorporate Elbaf. Tell them how I was foolish. Tell them how I killed guards here today and how I'm a failure of a king. Loki, you have to take up the mantle. Loki, you have to be king, and you must be better than I am. And it's when like Harold said that shit, man, it's like a fucking pound of bricks, bro. Because if you think about this, Loki has been at the bottom of the totem pole, both literally and almost figuratively, for Elbaf politics and just really like Elbaf, even like religion, right? Like the idea of Loki, somebody who's named after a kind of god, he's chained up and he's put into the bottom of the realm, but we got Haruden and Ripley Ripley and, and Goldberg running around, kind of just doing nothing in totality with this whole Imu Damiroverse thing, opposed to the character named after a god who's chained to the bottoms of the rocks, right? That's kind of funny, right? The guy who idolized rocks is now chained to a rock is now chained to a rock and is now on the way to stop the people who killed rocks. Isn't that funny? It's funny how the universe works, huh? But very, very good shit all around from this chapter. Just one last thing I think is very interesting. Harold, he says to Shanks that the power that he has been bestowed, it is not something that he wants to easily relinquish, right? And it really does mirror Roger, kind of beckoning to Garp and kind of beckoning to Rocks on God Valley to break out of this curse, right? To break out of this and to more or less, use no chalk jutsu, right? I really liked how the emotion is being displayed not only from Rocks, but Harold in this situation with this Damiroverse. It really does seem like all of your bodily autonomy, it is just washed away, and you can only get out like little speeches of you can only get like little speeches of consciousness here and there, right? It is maybe some of the most insane world building I have seen, right? Because we see Imu use Harold as a proxy for certain words and certain speeches, such as we see Gonko get used as a proxy. I mean, again, he has the exact same power system as Sommers and a Killingham, so it's nuts. It's nuts to see the abilities at display here, right? We see Shanks and Gabon. They make a save, and after this save, Loki, he reaches the throne room, containing the special devil fruit. We don't really know what devil fruit it is yet, but he reaches this devil fruit and he is immediately attacked by Ragnir, right? Now, this spurred some theories for me, right? The idea that Ragnir is protecting this devil fruit and it can act without the powers, without the will of the devil fruit being activated, right? It can just act on its own will. It is possible that the hammer itself possesses the Thor model, like the Thor model lightning fruit. Also be a situation where the fruit inside, it coincides with the hammer, being that, the hammer is just protecting essentially the devil fruit. The devil fruit could possibly be, like a mythical model Thor. It could also be like a mythical model serpent, but the one I really gravitate towards is mythical model Ymir. All right, for those who do not know, Ymir was one of the first giants, or one of the first creatures essentially in Norse mythology. It existed within the primordial realm, and its deconstruction and death from its three sons, Odin and his brothers, I can't remember their names right now, who can remember their names, they essentially craft the entire 9 realms out of the body of Ymir. Now, I don't really know how this is going to play into One Piece, but I would like it if Loki had a giant centric fruit, right? Now, whether that be a serpent or a Thor, whether that be Surtur, or whether that be a Ymir, right? I think that all options are perfectly fine for me. No complaints on that. I also really like the idea of Ragnir just acting within its own independent will. I think just taking a story about willpower and, perseverance, I just think that hits hard. It hits very, very, very hard. This is a very good chapter. It was one of the slower ones, but it really does have you sit and try to understand exactly what it gives you. And I'll be damned if I say this shit doesn't give me a lot. It gives me a lot to work with as a theory crafter. It gives me a lot to work with as a content creator. And these chapters have been bangers, right? These chapters have been very, very, very good. There is no break next week. I normally lead off my videos with saying there is or isn't a break, but there's no break next week. So we'll be picking this shit right back up next week. Right? So we're almost into the 1200. So, I am very, very much looking forward to that. And this is a really good chapter, really, really good chapter. So this is One Piece 1169. All right, it's me, your boy Kappa D Barra. All right, I am hopeful for this next installment. If you guys have any thoughts, leave them below. All right, make sure you guys like and sub. And as I always say, all right, stay tuned, stay safe, stay beautiful. All right, peace.